Hey everyone, Will Brink here, brinkzone.com. Show today we're going to have a guest, an interesting guest, a buddy of mine from way back. Jim Vaglica was prior Sergeant Jim Vaglica. So, a lot of my guests, if you've been watching these shows, are people that I've known a long time, and there's some interesting backstory to it before I bring them in. So back in the day, when dinosaurs roamed, mid '90s, I guess that's pretty back in the day for some people. When I was writing for all the magazines, and Jim contacted me. We're not sure how, because I've just been so long, but I think email was probably how he contacted me, because through Muscle Mag, I know that. So Jim being an athlete and all that, read Muscle Mag, so he contacted me and said, "Hey, I saw you're local, and I work at the Waltham Police Department, and we want to come out to the range sometime," because I must have written something about guns or shooting or something like that. And he and I and a crew of guys met up and went out to the range in the middle of the winter. It was shit cold, classic New England. We're at the range. There's nobody there. It is freezing cold. We're up to our knees in snow. We're sloshing around in ice and stuff. But we had a good day at the range. It was fun, and that was sort of how I met Jim, and we've been really good friends, or friendly at least, ever since. And Jim, as you guys know, I think if you watch the show and you read my stuff, I've also been involved with law enforcement, written for law enforcement magazines. I was an adjunct trainer for Smith and Wesson for a minute, and a number of things, including military. But a lot of that actually probably started with Jim. At least, like, my interest was there. That was always an interest. But as far as kind of gotten going in that, I think really, and I had lots of other friends who were cops, but I think those doors opened, frankly, through Jim. Because after that, he invited me to do some talks for his crew, his department, and some other people. And later on, I ended up actually being, I guess, the performance trainer. That's the term I use for his guys in the NEMLIC SWAT team. Made a bunch of really good training videos, and ended up doing again more seminars and writing and video. So I think I'd have to credit Jim with that. As much as I don't like to credit Jim with anything, frankly, because he's got kind of a big ego, but he deserves it. The guy's earned it. I'll be honest. So some people might be a little on the ego side, but they actually have a little bit of a right to. And some people just don't. But Jim, I'm gonna give you his background. I think you'll agree. The guy's, he's done some stuff, so we'll cut him some slack on that. He's pretty humble, not. But anyway, so Jim was a police officer for almost 30 years, I think, in Waltham, Mass. Waltham is a town outside of Boston, and in case anybody thinks that means it was like a low key, like Mayberry town. Waltham was a tough town back in the day, especially. I'd say, well, at least 70s and 80s and maybe early 90s ish. Waltham was a tough town. It had no lack of murders and gang problems and drug problems, and it was one of the tougher towns in the area for quite a while. And like a lot of towns at that time, people started to move out of Boston. And some of those really tough towns became more or less gentrified and changed quite a bit. So Waltham was kind of one of those towns that you got to actually see kind of over the years, like gentrifying over and becoming more expensive and nicer. And they cleaned up the downtown, which the downtown used to be literally just like homeless people and bums and biker bars and stuff. So it was a tough area. So he did not work in Mayberry by any stretch. And anybody knows some of those towns could admit. He was on the SWAT team also for a long time. We'll have to get numbers out of him, but I don't know, probably 20 years or something like that. So lots of call outs. I went on a few ride-alongs with him and stuff back in the day, and he took me to, some of the areas were still a bit sketchy, but still a lot better than they were when I was younger, because I grew up more or less on and off in sort of that area. But like, I was in Newton. I lived in Newton and stuff when I was going to school. Newton was always upscale, expensive area. But like all the crime all the property crime, car thefts, house break-ins, all that stuff, we knew where they were coming from, Waltham. And all the houses that were on like the border. The closer you got to Waltham, the more crime there was, because I'm going to say unpleasant words about the people who deal with those things. Let's just call them criminals anyway. And one of the houses I lived in, I rented a room, was like right on the border. And man, yeah, it was like you had to lock up everything. And if anything wasn't locked down, tile, whatever, they'd break in. A lot of drug problems in Waltham. So anyway, just to tell you that. But besides being a cop, so Jim was also, he's a strength and conditioning specialist, male model. Let's not forget the male model thing. I'm partially kidding, but not really. He's one of those guys. He could do that if he's a little taller. He's not that tall, but anyway. He was also on not one but two reality shows, which were fairly popular. So, and we'll get to those in a second. What else? Martial artist, powerlifting competitor, all around athlete. Just one of those guys is just very athletic, I think, through and through. I don't know, if he has a wrestling background, probably has one of those, those people probably was athletic his whole life. Me, for example, I mean, when I was at my best and all that, I was still basically a gym rat. I was a strong guy, I could move some good weights, but I couldn't run for squat. I wasn't that functional. All that kind of functional stuff and interest honestly came to me a little later. Unfortunately, I wish honestly, for example, that I had stuck with martial arts longer. I kind of had to make a decision and all that. So that's like the basic Jim Vaglica background. But another thing that we're going to talk about a little bit at some point is just that Jim was a cop, I think, at a very important time in policing in general, in that he was at this window where when he started, we're talking like, I think mid 80s ish, where we're talking really old school policing, and a different culture, the society was quite different to when he left, really probably that whole transition in modern policing and what that means. So I think he was very much in the truly transitional period and can comment on that. And there's just a lot going, as you all know, watching the news and all that, there's just a lot going on out there with policing and how it's viewed and how the media portrays it, which is badly. Let's just be honest there. And then, of course, that whole thing that happened in Texas, that last event, and I think we're going to try to touch on that a little bit. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in the male model, all around firearms, gun guy, SWAT guy, and let's see, let's bring in Jim. Jim, how's up? How's it doing, man?
Hi, male model Jim here.
Yeah.
Hi, Will. So,
how you doing?
All right, let's go. I'm fired up for this interview. I've been waiting for it for a while. You blew me off, and
yes, I did. And I won't make any excuses on that. I pinged you to do it, and you were like, "Yeah, let's do it." And then I flaked on it for, I don't know, whatever, a couple of weeks or longer. So that's on me. Bunch of things came in and hit me with to get done. So yeah, but that was on me. And again, that when that recent event happened, I said, man, I gotta, that just rewound my, let's get Jim on. Let's talk, let's talk all things Jim. Let's talk, obviously, sort of the generic policing kind of situation as you see it, and then we'll kind of finish with so what were the name of the two reality shows you were on?
First one was Mark Burnett production called Expedition Impossible.
Yeah,
and that was an adventure race across the Kingdom of Morocco.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to Google Morocco to find out where it was in the world, and then come to find out it's northwest Africa.
Right.
So I was there for about a month. And then the second show was hosted by John Cena, and that was called American Grit, the first season of American Grit, the good season, because the second season they changed the format, and I thought it sucked.
All right. I only watched the season you were in. I watched both shows that you were in. I never watched the follow up to it, but I watched both of the ones you were in. And I remember the parties you had, at the bar, during, I don't know if it was the last one or the first episode, but you had, a bunch of people. That was fun in Waltham. We all met and watched the show and had drinks and all that. That was really fun. Yeah, those were good. How long? Again, to me, this doesn't seem that long ago, but how long ago were those shows?
So Expedition Impossible aired in 2011, and then American Grit aired in 2016.
Okay, so not that. Okay, that's good. So I'm glad I'm not that far off. I thought you were going to say something like, "Oh, 97," and I would have been, "Oh my God!" All right, so that's within the ballpark. All right, so it's not as far gone as I recall.
No,
Yeah. So you did almost 30 years
I
as a
did,
sergeant.
I did 32 years. Um, and
32. Okay. Wow.
yeah, 32 years. That's the magic number. You max out in Massachusetts. You max out your pension
Right.
at 32 years on the job.
Right.
Um, and then I did 16 years with the Nemlik SWAT team.
Right. Actually, I should probably go back a little more on the shows because I actually should. So how did you ping the first one, or who pinged you for that first
Right.
one?
So the first one, well, so I've always competed. I've always been an athlete, and I've always looked for my next challenge. And then, so when Survivor was popular, okay, I said, you know what, that looks like a great challenge. I would love to do that. So, back in the day, you got to make a tape. You got to make a VHS tape, and then mail that clunky thing in.
Right.
So I sent one to Survivor, right? And they, I'm sure well, I don't know if they looked at it, but actually they had to have looked at it. Come to think of it, but I never heard back. They don't answer you back if they're not gonna cast you. But anyway, so the casting director that saw my tape just called me out of the blue years later. He still had my cell number, and he was just like, "Hey, you don't know who I am, but I know who you are. I saw your tape, and I got a show for you, and it's a brand new show, and I can't really tell you too much about it, but I want to put together a team of 3 Boston area cops. So I'm reaching out to you, and I want you to find 2 more, and then get back to me." So I did. I reached out to 2 people from my department, and we just jump forward and forward in the process. I mean, every reality competition show has this whole process that you need to go through, and it takes a month or so. But we just kept going and going, and there we are in Morocco.
Anything you can tell us, kind of cool, interesting, whatever, about behind the scenes stuff that like you weren't expecting, or was totally not, totally different, or what the hell is wrong with these? Something you can give us that goes on behind the scenes that just like change your sort of viewpoint of the whole menagerie.
All right, so I think it was second day of racing. So 1 week. Hold on. So anyway, you would go several days, and that would make 1 episode. Okay. So in our second day of racing, they really didn't know how long it was going to take us, because the show was insane. We traveled for miles and miles every day, and it was like every form of transportation you can think of. But mostly it was with a backpack. So, as a team, we had to carry certain things with us, and then we could bring certain things if we wanted to. But my backpack was generally 40 to 50 pounds. And so the second day of racing, it went into the night. So it got dark as we were coming down off a mountain. And this mountain was just a whole series of blocks, of just like blocks of stone that you had to, like giant steps, you know what I mean? And all we had was these little headlamps.
I vaguely remember that.
And I'm thinking to myself, if any one of us falls, we're going to die. We're definitely going to die. So, what kind of safety do they have set up here? I mean, I didn't really care much. I wasn't afraid of anything, but I know that there was other people out there that must have been afraid. And I'm saying, somebody's going to fall to their death, and then they're just going to send us all home, and this show is never going to happen. Anyway, somehow we made it down off the mountain, and a few other teams made it down, and we survived. But they had us riding Arabian stallions, camels. So like the first set of camels they gave us was like tourist camels that you could actually ride. And then the second set of camels they gave us on another day were just totally insane. I think they just went out and caught them in the desert and brought them to us. They wouldn't let anybody ride them. You'd get on and they would just throw you off. And camels are mean. Like a horse will avoid stepping on a person, but a camel tries to step on you.
I know they can spit too. Like
none of them spit at me, but I didn't really give them a chance.
I think they're famous for that. They can spit some nasty, gluey stuff.
They'll bite you.
Yeah, they can bite.
And they will step on you. And there was one scene where the camel threw one of the girls, and it really looked like it stepped on her. But if I think it stepped on her backpack. But if it stepped on her, she would be the end of her, probably the end of the show also. Yeah,
broken a leg, cracked ribs. They're big. I mean, again, they're also weigh about twice as much of as a horse or whatever. They're big. Yeah. They're huge animals. I don't think people appreciate how big a camel is. So the safety concerns were not exactly top of their concerns. You're saying they were more looking for ratings than your safety apparently.
So some of the safety was sketchy. We were rappelling 300-foot cliffs, but they had rappel masters for that. And I had been accustomed to rappelling before this whole show anyway, because I rappelled with the team, and we had some rappel masters on the team. So I know that the safety was there for the rappelling, but like some of the water stuff, like we rode on any kind of watercraft you can imagine. And at one point we were going down rapids. So, like if you were to, go on a rafting trip, right? You'd have your instructor, you'd have.
Who knew the rapids, who knew what they were doing, direct you away from the rocks, all that stuff.
Right. So he was in back steering this boat. Right. So at some point he's like, all right, I'm getting out. You guys are on your own. So there's the three of us in this raft going down the rapids. Like, we don't know what the hell we're doing.
I'm surprised that nobody did get at least decently injured, drowned or something, and then of course there would have been a lawsuit, and that would have been that. What about the second show? Any good behind the scenes craziness? Anybody on the show hooking up? I always want to know if anybody hooks up on those shows. I know they do. Okay.
Actually, my teammate.
Right.
My teammate, who was actually the youngest guy on the show, he was 21. His name was Cam, and he was a student and a professional wrestler. So
I remember, I do. I remember.
He's not a big guy. He's not ready for WWE, but he was, in the local circuits. He'd travel to New England and be in the shows. But anyway, him and this girl Hayes, who was on another team, they ended up together, and actually they kept on dating after the show.
There you go. So that's good. That's cool. I mean, because I know a lot of shows. I mean, I've heard this from many people on TV shows, movies, whatever. Regardless, that you're in this very small community of a bunch of people, it kind of feels like another world, and hookups are like very common on movie sets. I mean, I actually little quick side story. My mother's boyfriend, Tony Geritano was his name. He was a key grip in the movies, and he was sort of an independent. So if a movie came into the area, he'd get hired. And he used to work, for whatever reason, he worked mostly on horror films. I don't know why. So Anyway, so there was this big mansion in upstate New York. They're filming this movie. He did like low budget films, but he would make good money. And he said, "I'm going to go. I'm going up to I'm going up to work, key grip, and whatever. You know, you want to come up, come hang out." So I went up there with him, and yeah, I hooked up, and I'm and I'm not even on the damn movie. They didn't care. I mean, yeah. So anyway, and I've heard from a number of people, again, movie stars, or and other people, that there's this. It's kind of like this otherworldly feeling. You're all seeing each other every day. It's
Yeah.
Anyway. So that's my
Yeah,
my
are
story.
long. They are long, long days when you're shooting.
Right.
Like expedition, right? We slept outside. We slept
Right.
in these crappy tents.
Right. So you weren't sent to a nice hotel between days of shooting and stuff.
Oh no.
Okay. Because that happens on some shows. I know that.
Some shows it does.
Yeah.
But anyway, they would wake us up before the sun came up. Okay. So that was like 5:30 a.m. And we would go sometimes until it was dark again.
Right.
You know, and the same thing with American Grit. We would they'd always wake us up before dawn. So the first guys to show up would be audio guys. They'd be there about 6:30 a.m.
Right.
And we had to be ready. And then camera crew would show up at like 7 and we'd start filming. But all right, so I'll give you at least one behind the scenes on American Grit. Okay.
Right.
So they started us out one day and we had to make our way through the forest. Okay. This was shot in Washington State. Okay.
Right.
And it was November, December in the Seattle area. If you've ever been there, you know why people kill themselves so much.
Gray and raining and wet and all that. Yeah.
It's basically 40 degrees and raining every day.
Right.
But anyway, so this was a challenge where we needed to make our way through the forest, the woods, whatever, to the first checkpoint. Okay. So, and my team we were carrying, you had to carry this giant military, like equipment box. Okay. It was like 6 feet long. But anyway, so we ran through the forest for, I don't know how many miles, but we got to the checkpoint so fast, like no one expected any team to get there that fast. So they weren't ready for us.
Mm-hmm.
So we just showed up and someone on the crew panicked and he's like, just keep going. Right. He just sent us off to nowhere because we had no destination. Now we were looking for that checkpoint and now we're looking for that checkpoint, but we were told that wasn't it.
Right. Okay?
So we just spent the rest of the day running through the woods and through thorns and it was just miserable. And, until like they finally contacted somebody who was with us, one of the crew members, and said, hey, another team already finished the challenge. So just bring them back. All right.
Right.
So we get back to base camp and I find out what happened, that they totally screwed us over.
Right.
And I was livid. So
were you in like you were in last place or something? Did they screw you up so much that you
yeah, well, I mean, so on this show, if you don't finish first,
right.
So there's 4 teams. The team that finishes first doesn't need to go to circus. All right. Mm-hmm. And that's where you lose a teammate.
Right.
So the other 3 teams that don't finish first are going to lose a teammate. Anyway, mm-hmm. So the odds are anyway, so now my camera crew wants to do an interview with me and I'm fuming and I'm trying to compose myself and to give this interview, which usually lasts about an hour, right? They're called on the fly interviews, OTFs.
Mm-hmm.
We do about 2 of them a day. But anyway, I finally just say to my producer, you know what? I can't do this. You know, you guys fucked us. You guys totally fucked my team. I'm not going to give you an interview. And he's like, oh, you know, okay, Jim, but I'm going to have to tell Fox. I'm going to have to tell the executives that you refused to do an interview. I said, I don't care. Tell them what you did to us,
Right.
and tell them I refused to give an interview. So probably an hour or two later, the executive producers come into base camp and they gather us all together, and they say, we know what happened today. You know, we're really sorry about that. The only way to make this right is to completely redo the entire day, redo the challenge. We're going to have to set up the challenge in different locations and reshoot the whole thing. To pretend this day never happened.
Right.
And it's going to take us a whole day to do that. So tomorrow is going to be a dark day. So a dark day means no shooting at all, no filming, no cameras, nothing. And it's just so between the dark day and an extra day of shooting, I'm sure that Fox spent hundreds of thousands of dollars.
All right.
Because we had a huge crew. Yeah. So anyway, things like that happen on reality shows, and you never know about it.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess I try to give them some credit there in that they could have just pieced together some film and pretended everything happened. You know what I mean? I'll give them some credit there that they did try to make it fair again. They didn't say, just go run the same thing and we'll fake it and, you know, something. So, well, you froze. Hopefully we didn't lose internet here. I'm going to give this a minute or two, and then I'm going to shut down. And oh, you're back.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you froze up. You're coming back here.
All right, cool.
All right, we'll splice this. We'll splice this back together.
All right, not a problem.
You're a little pixelated, but anyway, at least we finished where we were supposed to finish.
Yeah,
but yeah,
yeah,
like I say, I mean, I'll give them credit for trying to at least kind of keep it honest and not just splice together some nonsense and pretend it happened. So
let me tell you another story from the first show. So the first show, Expedition Impossible, there was a team who was called No Limits, and they had this blind dude who is one of the most amazing guys I've ever met. He has the distinction of being the only blind person to climb Mount Everest.
Okay. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's ringing a bell now. Yeah.
He had the 7 summits,
right?
Which, you know, that's the highest point on all 7 continents.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, maybe 100 people in the history of the world own the 7 summits. He's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so he was with. So it was a team of 3, and so he was with his mountain guide, okay, and the third one was a military dude from the Wounded Warrior Project, who he fell off a mountain and shattered his leg, but you know, now he was good enough to be involved in this adventure race. But anyway, that, you know, the crew realized that this team was going to be the fan favorites, and they were a strong team. But when we got down to the final 5 teams, and it was my team, the Cops, and No Limits was in there, right? So we made it to base camp. And we were the 3rd team to make it to base camp. And so that means only 3 teams are moving on to the finals. No Limits is not one of them. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So the host congratulated us, and we had our own little celebration that we were going to the finals and all that. And then I see all the producers are all in a huddle. And then they call the host over. And then they send the host back over to us, and then they turn the cameras back on. No, actually, I don't know if they turn the cameras back on, but anyway, the host says to us, "Hey, you know, Cops, you failed to complete the last challenge correctly. You need to go out and complete it the right way. And I was like, what are you talking about? What did we do wrong? Can you tell us what did we do wrong? And he's like, I can't tell you anything more than that. Just go back out there and complete it correctly. So we're just out there in the desert, you know.
Right. Well, it's hard to complete something correctly if you don't know what you did wrong.
Exactly. We're just running around crazy. Like, what are we supposed to do? And then we see No Limits running past us.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, all right, well, just run for the finish line again. So here we are, my team and No Limits running for the finish line. And of course they make it over before we do.
Mm-hmm.
And they go to the finals. You know?
Yeah, you see, that's a little more of what I had in mind as far as doing underhanded things for rating. That's more that I was thinking about. They could have done on the other show. So before we move on to something else, how was John Zena? I'm not a big wrestling guy. Was he around? Was he a cool guy? Was he go to his trailer and ignore you all, or what? What's up? Like, he was a huge star back in the day.
Yeah, John Cena.
Cena. Okay, all right.
John Cena. Yeah, You know, the first time I saw him, I was in awe. You know, he looks like an action figure.
Right.
The guy used to be a bodybuilder, so he's got an amazing look to him.
Yeah, I've seen him at the Arnold Classic and stuff a couple of times.
Square jaw.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
You know, I liked him. I was enjoying him for quite a while, and then. So he would write his own stuff. They wouldn't write him a script. They wouldn't write him his speeches like he's supposed to do before and after the competitions and all that. Mm-hmm. He's like a workaholic. I don't know how he has time to do everything he does, but he, like, midway through the show, he started to try and build the drama because drama sells in reality.
Right. And being a professional wrestler, he knows the script. He knows how to work what the drama. He knows that whole thing. I mean, obviously they're really good at that, obviously.
So when I lost my second teammate, she was a girl named K-Joy. She was like a big yoga instructor.
I remember her. Yeah.
Actually. Yeah. So they kind of screwed around with her exit, and he said that she quit and that she gave up and that she was a disappointment to the show. And I took exception to that because it was bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that kind of planted the seed in my mind. And then later on, when I was the final member of my team, I'm a horrible speller. And so one of these challenges involved like a word scramble and then a spelling challenge.
Yeah.
And so I had spelled the word wrong. And because the ultimate word that I was supposed to come up with was a combination on a lock. So I had the spelling wrong. Mm-hmm. So the lock wouldn't open. And I spent, I don't know, maybe an hour just like trying to open this lock and you know, just like a crazed chimpanzee. I was so mad. So anyway, at the end of the day, Cena starts giving his speech again. And he's like, yeah, you know, I can't believe Jim gave up and he quit and he was a big disappointment to his team leader. And man, I was furious that he was saying that shit because it didn't go down like that.
Mm.
So,
well, welcome to television land.
Yeah. So, you know, I thought about, it just came out of left field, you know, like when we're all standing there and everybody's listening to him say this shit about me, and they're all like, just everyone's silent. You can hear a pin drop because they're like, what is he saying? You know, that doesn't make any sense. Anyway, I thought about, you know, confronting him on camera, but I figured that probably wouldn't be a good idea. Just because I don't know, they'd probably make some shit up and throw me off the show behind the scenes.
Right.
But anyway, I spoke to the executive producer that night, and I'm like, "Hey, did you hear what a big disappointment I am?" And he's like, "Oh, I know. Don't worry about it. We're not going to air any of that. I don't know why he said that."
Right. I don't remember him. Did they air it? Because I don't remember that, honestly.
No, they never aired that.
Okay,
But
I didn't think so. That doesn't ring a bell to me that ever happened. So okay,
the next time,
I've got a good memory for that kind of thing.
yeah, he came to base camp like the next day or whatever, and he was like, "Yeah, this is a tough profession I'm in, and this is a tough job, and I know that some of you probably want to punch me in the face right now." And I'm thinking, when he's talking somebody, he means me. He's talking about Jim, because nobody else wants to punch him in the face right now.
Right.
So yeah, that's another little behind the scenes thing that happens on these shows.
Like I said, I was interested. I've seen him around because he, like I say, a lot of the wrestlers go to the Arnold Classic because they're fans of bodybuilding. So I've seen him walking around. A couple other guys, I forget their names because I'm not, like I said, that was never a big wrestler. But he's, like I say, he's, as you said, he looks like an action figure. He's a big guy. So
yeah, he's a big, strong dude. But everyone asks me what he's really like. I don't know what he's really like. But
well, right, you didn't hang out with him at beers or anything, right?
Yeah, and he didn't really hang around with us much. The other team, so the team leaders, we had 4 team leaders, all military guys, and
I remember them. Yeah, all right.
There was one Navy SEAL commander named Rourke Denver, and I ended up striking up sort of a friendship with him, and we spoke after the show was over. We had a couple of phone calls, but and I asked him what he thought of Cena, and he says that he has spent time with Cena. He's been to Cena's house.
Right.
And he thought he was a solid, real dude. So
okay, all right. Well, that's good to know.
That's my answer for anybody who says Cena really like. Rourke Denver says Cena's a good guy, so I'll take his word for it.
So you'll take his word for it. All right. So we should probably talk a little. Really, your obviously your lane and all that, because of the policing for 32 years, and there's obviously a lot going on out there.
Yeah.
With the politicians, the way they're treating, the way the media is treating the law enforcement, or treating law enforcement. So for one thing, I want to talk a little bit about the whole transition. Again, you were in a very key time when you started to when you finished, which was like almost the actual window of like the true transitioning from kind of like really old school policing to what was, I guess we'd call more modern policing, really that style.
Yeah.
And what I don't want to do is put words in your mouth on that, because I obviously have kind of my own thoughts on it, but not from the insider's point of view. I know it through, guys like you and my various, friends in law enforcement and stuff I've seen. So what is your thoughts on what you saw, through all that time and those changes and where it went to?
So I got on in 1985. I was barely 23 years old. And so, my past up until that point, I could have easily went the other way. I could have been a criminal instead of a cop, because the 3 guys that I grew up with all ended up doing time.
Well, that usually makes the best cops too, because they know what the other side looks like.
Yeah. And you don't want Dudley Do-Right as a cop. You don't want to deal with Dudley Do-Right.
That's what I'm saying.
You screwed up, right? If you are speaking to a cop and you know that you screwed up, you don't want to deal with Dudley Do-Right. You want somebody who's maybe been there before, maybe been in your shoes.
And knows, BS when they hear it, and what's legit and what's serious.
Yeah. So anyway, the guys that I worked with, they were some of them were real legitimate tough guys, and like if they had a beef with somebody on the street, and that guy said, "Hey, you're nothing without a badge and gun."
Yeah, they take the badge off.
They might take their badge and gun off.
Yeah.
And fight the guy. Yeah. They might even meet him after shift.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'll meet you at midnight, at Prospect Hill Park, and we'll see who the tough guy is.
All right.
They might go into the cell block and bring the guy out of the cell and fight him right in the middle of the cell block.
Mm-hmm.
That's the era that I came into. That was just winding down. And then so I went through the whole community policing era, and that kind of died out. So what was big? Rodney King was huge. That changed policing. That was a pivotal point in policing. And then the school shooting. Drawing a blank now.
What, the one in Colorado?
Yes.
The first big one, Columbine?
Columbine.
Yeah, that was the first like official random school shooting without hostages, without demands, just
Right.
just walked in there and did horrible things. Yeah.
Well, I mean, believe it or not, prior to Columbine, there was no term active shooter.
Right.
We never really had to deal with that.
Right.
And that's why that whole situation was screwed up, is because they were treating it like a hostage situation.
Oh, well, that's what they would expect. I mean, that's normally when somebody takes a school full of people, they want something, they want demands. I do know that.
Yeah. It's hard to believe. If you tell somebody, yeah, Columbine, there was no active shooter at that point. The term wasn't even made up. So anyway, I don't know. There's just been a lot of pivotal moments and tough times in policing, and a couple of years ago was probably the lowest point ever in American policing, when they were burning the cities down
and blaming the police for responding.
Yes.
So if they or telling them not to respond at all, and telling them to hold back and do nothing, that just drove me bananas.
I mean, think about this. A police precinct in America was overrun by civilians. The cops had to leave their own police department and have it be burned down.
Right. And then they formed their own government. Literally, an entire neighborhood was taken over.
Yeah.
For how many weeks or months are we talking about?
Yeah, I think it was months.
Months, and town hall, city hall, whatever, did nothing about it. They had literally shootings. There were five people killed in there. There wasn't like this was not kumbaya holding hands stuff. I believe I know several people died in their fake little government.
Yeah.
The drugs were going on. They were, literally, and City Hall told them not to stand down and not do anything about it. And, now that is actually an actual insurrection.
Yeah.
That's an actual insurrection. I'm not going to go to the other one because we don't need to, but by all accounts, that is a legit insurrection. And so, okay, so continue on. Sorry.
I don't know. I think I was rambling. I mean, let's.
Well, so I'm just sort of trying to take you through, like I say, sort of the transitions, the sort of major transitions you saw over time in policing. But also, I just want to hear more about, as you said, like the original characters were like really old school, but obviously the culture has changed because the people coming into policing are coming from the culture we all live in. It's not like they're separate human beings. And so as the culture has changed, you're getting, very different personalities. And I'm trying to be delicate about this because,
all right.
I'm not putting words in your mouth, but what have you seen in that part?
So, all right, let me take it back. I think I'd been on about 5 years. So it was probably 1990. And so I was a real aggressive cop. And I was chosen for, my department had just formed what they call a street level drug unit. And it was 3 of us. And so they said, all right, you 3 are going to go out there and you're going to do legal harassment of all the known criminals in the city, and focusing on drugs and gangs. We want you to identify everyone. We want you to arrest as many of these people as you can. And if they're not coming into the police station almost every damn day complaining about you guys, you're not doing your job.
So is this sort of stop and frisk on steroids?
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of.
And so we were making hundreds of arrests. We were doing field identification cards.
Mhm.
So the three of us were doing more field identification cards than the entire rest of the department combined.
Mhm.
I knew every bad guy in the city, and I'm going to give us credit for stopping the gangs from really getting a foothold in my city, because they had Boston proper,
Mhm.
and they had quite a few other adjacent cities, but they tried to get their foot into Waltham, and we were just on them constantly.
What was their background? I mean, what are we talking? Typical gangs or Jamaicans, Vietnamese, Chinese? What was their basic makeup?
Well, the Boston gangs were mostly local teenagers or 20 somethings,
Okay, so they weren't out of town. They were more
No, it
like
wasn't.
Roxbury spreading out, or Southie or something like that.
It wasn't like uh, all Haitians
Right.
or
That's what I'm sort of getting. Sometimes it's sort of a focused
yeah.
group in some location, country, whatever background kind of thing.
No, they were mixed up.
Okay.
But anyway, and if you're a gang banger wannabe, you got to prove yourself.
Mm,
So you got to go out there and start capping people.
right.
And sometimes the wannabes are worse than the guys that actually make it.
Right. Well, they're trying to prove something. So yeah.
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 So anyway, where am I?
So you're arresting a bunch of people. You're in the
Yeah,
90 low 90s ish when crime was actually still very high. And again, a lot of people, because the media gets people all revved up. The little sidebar here, but the media loves to get people all revved up. You would think it was World War III out there right now,
yeah,
and crime was much higher in the 70s and the 80s and early 90s by a large margin. I grew up in Brooklyn in the 70s and 80s. I mean, that was Beirut. I got shot at twice. I've been
yeah,
shot at more than most police officers, and I didn't even have the pleasure of being able to return the favor.
yeah,
So all I could do was run. And so when people look at the actual murder numbers and stuff of Boston and New York and stuff in the 70s and 80s, it's not even close to what it is. It was double, triple that. And you would think right now, by watching the media, is literally World War III out there.
Well,
Back
I
to
mean,
you.
Boston back then had Whitey Bulger and the Winter Hill Gang and
Yeah.
all those gangs that were really whacking people left and right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So this was transitional. I mean, did you view this because you started it? I'm assuming this was something you view was a transitional experience in how law enforcement behaved then and then moved forward.
yeah. I mean, with every major incident, we had to change the way we did things.
Okay.
Um, like back in the day, a police chase, like it didn't matter why the car was fleeing.
Right.
You just chase them until the end. And
Right. Well,
and
now
every
again,
other cruiser, right? Every other cruiser that was in the area would get involved, and
right.
you'd have 20 cruisers chasing one car, and you didn't even know why.
Right.
That
Well,
had to end.
yeah. So that had to, and so I'm assuming. So it doesn't sound like you actually minded that part ending.
Oh no, that was a lot of fun. There's nothing gets your blood racing like a car chase.
No doubt. I'm saying, but I mean, did you feel that 20, like 5 cars would have been sufficient, or like more the
Oh yeah.
better, or
Oh no, you
that's what I'm thinking.
didn't
Like
need
everybody
that.
wants to get in on this chase and go racing around, and
Everybody wants
Yeah.
to get in on it.
So I mean, I'm going to so put it to you more straightforward here, and you answer how you want. But do you think that, again, because modern policing, that the people coming in and stuff are not either the right personality for the job, not prepared for the job, have not, ever got punched in the mouth, or
Yeah,
whatever to do the job? I'm trying to, like, I want to get to
I hear you.
what I'm hearing from a lot of modern police officers are like, you just, aren't real thrilled, I guess, with some of that. If
It's
that makes sense.
it's it's all of America. It's American males,
Right.
right? I mean, um, the testosterone levels in American males has been dropping since what, World War II?
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, consistently, and that's something, I look into and track. Yeah, no, it's, people, if people had thought, their grandpa and whatever was more manly, he was.
Of course he
That's
was.
why you thought that, because grandpa was more manly. He had testosterone. The average testosterone levels were like 700, 800 at least. And now, so, I mean, as I said earlier, and now you're sort of confirming that, again, police departments and stuff are really a reflection of the current culture. I mean, that's who's
Sure.
in there. It's not like some people don't know any, obviously there's a culture inside policing, but the people that are cops are part of the current culture, are going to reflect that current
Right.
culture. But what I'm hearing from a number of people, guys and girls, and even one guy who's at the academy, which is because of, you said, like, just the typical, male and woman, whatever, I mean, there's, there's obviously, you've worked with some good female cops. Obviously, you knew a couple. You told me back in the day they were pretty switched on.
Well, you know what? The funny thing is, I think female cops are probably more prepared for the job now than they were back when I got on, because
Right.
a lot of females are into CrossFit and
Right.
lifting weights and all that
Right.
stuff that really makes a good cop. No matter what they tell you, how we're in the computer age and all that, it does come down to being a physical job.
Yes.
Somebody doesn't want to get arrested, it's going to get physical. You know.
Right.
Um,
Well, one guy who remained nameless, but he actually is works at the academy. He's a instructor at an academy. And I communicated with him, and he said, "Look, the people that are coming through, I just don't, I just don't feel they're prepared for this job,
no.
and they've just never had to deal with it." He said that, they're okay to train and all that. He said, but when presented with something like, like things go from okay or normal to really bad, which obviously happens really fast, they
Yeah.
just freeze.
Yeah.
They just freeze, and they're not prepared for it. And that you can't necessarily teach them. Obviously you can help them, but I mean, that's something you kind of either, and that's going to bring us to obviously that later talk, about what happened in Uvalde. We were talking about, we probably should have got that pronunciation down, Uvalde, Texas. But anyway, we'll get to that in a minute. So I'm just kind of, I'm like I said, I'm doing my best not to put words in your mouth here, but I kind of just want to get a sense of your thought on that current situation of policing, or just, the people coming through. And so, I mean, is your basic feeling just more or less reflection of the current status of younger people, men and women, and maybe you're just, I don't know, I don't want to say soft. Obviously that's not nice to say. I'm trying to think of the appropriate word
You, you,
for
you
it.
don't have to. You don't have to be nice.
I'm trying. It's easy. I'm on a new nicer me kick. This is my new thing. I was told by some people that I need to be nicer. Not that long ago. People I respect and I like, not dickheads.
Okay.
Not people I don't like, but people actually, and it's, well, you probably should tone it down. I mean, you're and okay, so I'm trying. I'm doing my best to be nice about things.
Anyway,
Okay.
so getting back to
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Well, so I'll let you summarize this
hiring cops.
section. Huh?
So just to back up, as far as new cops getting
Yeah.
hired, when I took the exam, it was a statewide exam, and there were like 60 or 70,000 people that took the exam.
Oh yeah, everybody wanted to be a cop. There would be, I mean, everybody, you would have 10 times more people applying for the job at least than then you had spots for the job.
Oh yeah,
That I know
no,
that. Yeah,
100 times more.
yeah,
Uh,
100 times more. Right, 100 times
so,
more. Yeah.
and I believe the exam was free at one point,
Mm-hmm.
to encourage people to take the exam. And then, so there was so many people taking it. They figured that some people were taking it just because it was free. So then they
Mm-hmm.
started charging for it, hoping that was going to weed out some people that weren't really serious. Anyway, fast forward, I get promoted, and now I'm a sergeant. And one of my assignments was that of a background investigator. So I would do backgrounds on prospective Waltham cops.
Right. You know who also did that for a while? I remember my buddy Rodney
Yeah,
from Boston. He did that for a while too. Man, he had some stories. He said you just would not believe the people that why they even. He said you just would not believe the shit people came up with to think they were ever going to be a cop. He said it was my. He had some funny. He had some of them were pretty. Some of them were just sad, and some of them were funny as shit. Anyway,
yeah.
back to you. Go ahead.
So you start at the top of the list. So guys that got 100, 99, 98, right? I mean, I would chip away. Like if I didn't like a candidate, I could sink them.
Right.
Because I knew there were hundreds of candidates for me to choose
so
from.
you could be picky and tell the right person
Yeah.
that clearly had the temperament and an attitude and all that. Yeah.
And they have some intelligence because they're scoring high, right? If I got down to the 97s, man, that was I had lost a lot of people along the way.
Mm-hmm.
So now fast forward, and some departments don't even have the number of applicants that they have openings.
Oh yeah, no, I know they have to. I mean, you can even see on TV and stuff. I mean, they're actually giving like extra bonuses and stuff for it's like signing up and moving costs and all kinds of stuff that they're trying to. They literally have some advertising for a department that said there's like a $30,000 signing bonus.
Yeah. So if you don't have the candidates,
yeah,
like how are you gonna say no? We don't want this guy.
right.
You know what I mean? They're taking people that I never would have taken. I would have laughed at this person,
Right.
back in the day. But they have to take them because who else?
Right.
No.
So, yeah. I mean, you got to have cops. I mean, you got to
gotta
have
have
enough
cops,
people
and
on the force. And yeah.
if you're consistently working under manpower, okay. So what do you do? Like, all right. So now the patrol division is the backbone of the police department.
Mm-hmm.
You need guys in patrol. So if you're down 10 guys in patrol, what are you going to do? You're going to start taking people out of specialty positions,
Right.
maybe
Or overworking the guys you have, obviously, or overworking the people you have.
Right.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
Right. So, you're pulling from detectives, you're pulling from the schools, whatever. Because if you don't do that, now you've got people, you're forcing people to work shifts. So, the guy that just worked the midnight shift, it's now 7 or 8 in the morning. He's supposed to go home, and he's told, you know what, you're working a day shift now. On top of that, you're staying for the next 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens all the time.
Right.
And these guys, I mean, do you want to deal with a cop that's been there 14, 15 hours in a row?
Right. Yeah. Right. Who's tired and pissed off and missed his daughter's, play, yada, yada, yada. So yeah, that's not,
everything adds to the downfall of the American police department.
So I don't understand how anybody could be a cop today. I'm very appreciative that they're willing to do it. I really, again, I'm very appreciative there's somebody willing to do it. I want to make that very clear, but I don't know. I just don't know how anybody could. You probably are more than happy not to be doing that in this current environment that has really shown itself in the last, I don't know what, 4 or 5 years ish.
Yeah, well, the past couple of years it's really gotten bad.
Right.
I don't know if I told you, I'm sworn in again. I'm just out there working details when I
Right.
want to. I work on
Right.
construction sites and
Yeah.
directing traffic.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned that.
Make some extra dough, but
Right.
I don't have to deal with real police work. I'm not going on domestics and all
Right.
kinds of stuff like that.
Right. So, all right. So I guess I got a good sense of that. I'm gonna ask you a completely random question. I don't know why this is popping in my mind. Now we're gonna go back to what we're talking about, but I don't know why. But so when we were doing training, so just FYI again, people listen. I worked with Jim and his crew with the NIMLEC SWAT for a couple seasons to get them prepped up for competing in SWAT competitions. Because yes, there are SWAT competitions. Anyway, do you have any like particular memories of the training or anything like I did to you guys or anything that sticks out? You were like, oh, because a couple of them used to call me Dr. Evil occasionally. And there were some comments about, can we kill this guy? No, we can't. We're paying him to be here. Okay. There was like those kind of, do you have any like recollection of anything that jumps out
Well,
at you? Cause that was a fun times.
those were some good times,
Yeah.
man. And I think the first one we did was 2008 um, down in Connecticut. And so think about this. The last day of the entire competition was the physical challenge, right?
Yeah. That was tough stuff, man.
So, and it's an obstacle race over 3+ miles as a team. And so at the time that we were doing those, no one had even heard of Spartan or Tough Mudder.
Nope.
We
Nothing.
were doing
Again.
Spartan before it was even invented.
Well, again, I hate to, again, I don't want to toot my own horn and all that, but when I see all that Spartan stuff and that Tough Mudder stuff and all that stuff, I'm like, I was doing that. And I honestly, I think better. I mean, I think my creativity and the way I trained you guys in very job specific ways, not just random stuff for no reasons ways, but, yeah, that,
Yeah,
I mean, and the first time, I mean, you guys kicked ass and everybody was so surprised, like, how, because again, I think we prepped you pretty well, but I just remember like as I'm pretty comfortable around law enforcement, but not being law enforcement. Like I remember the first day I showed up to train those guys, and they knew the only reason they were cutting me any slack is that I knew you. But beyond that, I had to prove myself, and that was very obvious to me. He's not a cop. Here he is. He's going to train us SWAT guys. Okay, who the fuck is this guy? And I just remember it took about a week or something before they all warmed up and were like, okay, he's cool and he knows what he's doing and he's not an idiot. But anyway, I just remember the first while there it was a little bit
yeah,
hairy for me. I was like, oh, somebody's going to choke me.
yeah.
Jim is going to turn his back and somebody's going to choke me, and that's going to be the end of this.
It is tough. It is tough for a non-cop to get involved, and especially with all the alpha dickheads on SWAT.
Yeah, and as you can see, I didn't care. I mean, to me, it doesn't bother me at all. I know, again, I've been around a lot of my friends and other guys are cops, so as you knew, it wasn't an issue. But so none of those guys ever, when I was leaving or anything, said I hate that fucking guy.
No.
Nothing like that. Okay, all right.
No. They know that you were there with our interest in mind. But I mean, you were a tactical shooter, man. You're doing competitions on your own. So
yeah. No, I mean that Mark. Yeah, I mean they knew I wasn't. That at least I wasn't some sort of like naive guy who didn't know what was what and what was the. And I set up the shooting rotations. All right. Anyway, I don't know why that just popped in my head. Something was like, what? I've never asked Jim like on a personal level. And people watching this, we have never had this conversation in all our lives. And I've never really asked you like straight up like what they thought. Was there any like he's okay, but he's an idiot or anything like that stuff. And just like memories. Because I mean, like I said, I think I kicked their butts for one thing, but in a good way, in a way they liked it. They knew it was productive. They knew they weren't wasting their time with what we were doing, and they were like, okay, I'm going to put up with all this. All this torture and being called names and all that. Cause I wasn't easy. I mean, I didn't hold back on any of that stuff. I wanted you guys to be like at your best that I could get you to with the minimum equipment we had and no budgets and all that other stuff that we had.
Yeah. Remember we were building our own equipment and
absolutely. Well, especially the first, like I said, especially the first season. So the first season, especially for the first season, we had nothing. I mean, you know, everybody just went to junkyards and you guys made stuff. I put stuff together. Now, the second season, because we did so well and I had videos, you remember, I showed up with a whole bunch of toys after that.
Well,
So
the other teams were watching our videos
I know.
and
And
learning how to
again,
train.
I know they were, and they even said it. You remember when at the
Yeah.
they all were, and then you guys banned me from putting up any more live videos till we were done.
Yeah.
Because I remember you said, you know, because they're literally watching the videos because you guys did so well in that physical portion that they were literally watching those videos on how to train, and they admitted it. I mean, again, I got to give them credit. They all said, like, we were at the celebration thing, and people are getting their trophies and stuff, and we were up at the top, and a bunch of guys from the table down yelled something like, "We watched your goddamn videos," or whatever it was, and we all laughed. So, and then you guys said no more videos online, you know, because I was doing 1 week and putting them up, and you
Yeah.
said we don't care if you video, but wait till the end of the damn. But the second season that you did so well, I was able to then get a bunch of companies to actually send me stuff, you know. So then we
Yeah.
ended up with like legit sandbags. Remember, we had the sled, we had active targets, we had all kinds of fun stuff, which worked out really well. So too
Yeah,
bad
those
that
were
didn't
good
go.
times, man.
Too bad that didn't go on longer. All right, so.
I miss those times.
Yeah, no, that was really fun. I like I said, I'm glad I kept those videos, and I'd like to do more of that. Like I said, I'm in Florida, so I just don't have. I know some guys down here, but I don't have the same contacts, and I'm gonna get back to looking. You know, I just got busy. So, all right, so I'm gonna ask you one question, then we're gonna get into some kind of heavier stuff.
All right.
Do you have like one story from policing and what was the hairiest? Do you have any sticks in your mind? You know, 30 years. That was not extended. As I told people again, that was not Mayberry. Anybody thinks Waltham was not a tough ass town that had a lot of issues going on in its day. Don't know. Did anything like crazy, naked, bleeding guys, or
All the above.
or all the above. You have any particular story that just I don't know, like just.
You ever try and fight with a naked guy?
Well, I've not, but I've seen video. If they're naked and bleeding, they're like they're a greased pig. I mean, there's nothing to hold on to. Well, nothing you want to hold on to anyway.
It's horrible. And I've had to do it several times. People ask me this, like the I don't know, the scariest or the craziest, or I mean, keep in mind, 16 years on the regional SWAT team with hundreds of call-outs. I was at a murder scene with 7 bodies. I've been in hostage situations. So many suicides, and it always comes back to death. Like, so death is like the ultimate call. That involves somebody dying.
Right.
So it's always the suicides or even the natural deaths that are so bizarre.
Right. What about that guy that murder suicide? He was like a athlete. He was like a well-known guy. Remember that? Was he a football player? Something. He was well-known though, and it was like a high profile. It was in all the news and all that. I was in Waltham. I want to say he was pretty well known, and I thought he was an athlete, but he was a pretty well known guy. And it was a very high profile thing. Like I say, it was a murder suicide. He murdered his girlfriend or his wife or whatever, and then he killed himself. And that one was all on the news and stuff. So you're not even remembering. So obviously that didn't even like strike you as unusual. That, like I said, that should remind people. That should remind people. Like I say, Waltham had some stuff going on. So
if you want to talk murder suicide, one of the guys we went shooting with.
I didn't know that was a murder. I knew the suicide part. I didn't know there was a murder part to that.
Yeah, he killed his wife before he killed himself.
Oh, I didn't know that. Didn't that guy actually literally drive me home? I believe that was literally the guy that drove me home. Remember, you put me in a separate car because he was going my way, you bastard.
We called him Archie. We called him Archie.
That was him. So first time I meet you, you and the crew were like, we're going this way, but Archie's going right by your place, so he'll take you home. And little did I know, basically, I was put in a car with somebody who ended up doing a murder suicide anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a little off though. He was the one that got you in trouble in the photo. You remember he put the gun behind my, and it wasn't in my head, but it looked bad. Your CO didn't like it because it just didn't. It was safe, but it wasn't smart. I mean, it was just goofy. It wasn't a smart thing to do.
Those were probably the 5 years that he was on the job.
Yeah.
I can't believe that I didn't get fired, because of all the stupid shit that him and a couple other guys got involved in,
Right. But he finally did get let go finally, right? Was that what happened to him?
He
Or
did, yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. So let's wrap this up with a little conversation about that event in Texas. Uvalde, I believe that is pronounced correctly, but we all know what we're talking about. And the reason I want to talk about it I just want to know how much have you really been on top of it, or I've actually been keeping on top of pretty much all the changing dynamics as best I can. I do have actually some contacts in law enforcement Texas that have given me something, so I'm pretty well on it. But I want to just get your take on what but also I want to look at it through that lens that we were talking about. That is, I've heard some cops say that they really felt that obviously the guy at top, the CI, obviously, all the blame is going towards him for a variety of reasons, understandably, but there were a lot of cops there not doing anything, not maybe making some decisions they just needed to make. And their feeling was it's a reflection of what we were talking about, that when things really get hairy, that it's on the line, and they're not aggressive. They're not, the personalities are not there that normally when things really go bad, where they're just going to do what's got to be done now.
Okay. So
thoughts.
So that excuse doesn't really hold water, because I guarantee there were over 100 cops there.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you can't tell me that all of those cops had been on less than 10 years.
Mm.
So, there were probably cops with 20, 25, maybe 30 years on the job. So, what about them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah. I get
so
that. Yeah.
this situation has pissed me off ever since it occurred. And regardless of how this turns out, how the investigation turns out and what they come up with, the damage has been done once again. And that is that's what is intended, because the powers that be that are in power now want to damage American law enforcement as much as possible, and they'll take every opportunity to do that. And they're coming at it in all different directions. And I don't know what's going to happen to American law enforcement, 10 years from now, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, so to talk about the occurrence and what actually happened there, we need a baseline of knowledge. Okay. So I don't really know much about what actually happened, because the information's not coming out. But let me start off to try and explain what I believe happened. I need to give you the basics of this type of a call. So, all right. So in scenario number one, you've got a person armed with a gun in a house or a building, and they're refusing to come out. Okay. That's what's called an armed barricade. The police response, the correct police response, is to contain, communicate, and don't go in. All right. So regardless of if this person is suicidal or homicidal, the police are not going in. They're just going to wait it out, try and talk it out, and get this guy to surrender. All right. So that's your armed barricade situation. Any questions there?
No, I don't have any. I mean, again, supposedly
all right.
Again, there's a lot of conflicting info that comes out, but apparently, again, supposedly, the incident commander said that's what he thought was going on, and so that was the call he made. That's been contradicted,
all right, so
pretty well.
You're jumping ahead.
Okay.
You're jumping ahead to another scenario.
Yeah.
This is the lone person armed barricade.
Yeah.
All right. And I'm not, so this is not specific to
This event.
to any event. All
Any
right.
event.
This is
Okay.
generic.
Yeah.
Scenario 2, you got the same person, and he's got hostages, a hostage or hostages. Okay. The police response is contain, communicate, and this is the key, form up an immediate action team. Okay. An immediate action team is going to get as close to the scene as possible, and they are ready to make entry if there's any indication that the hostage is being harmed. So a gunshot, screaming, any indication that the hostage is in danger, the immediate action team is going to breach and enter and end the situation. Okay.
By any means possible, basically.
By any means possible.
Right. Okay.
Most likely shooting the hostage taker.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But so history has shown us that if we can communicate with this person, this barricaded person, the longer you communicate, the longer this incident goes on, the better the outcome will be. The less people will get hurt.
Right.
Okay.
So you wear them down and talk to them and make them tired and
yes,
give up, sort of lose their motivation and all that.
Yes. All right. So scenario 3 is an active shooter.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a person in a target-rich environment, which is generally, an office building or a school. And their sole purpose is to kill as many people as possible in the shortest amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an active shooter. And the police response is to take out that active shooter as quickly as possible. So you're going to make entry. You know what? It's a bad day. You should have called in sick, but you're going to make entry, and you're probably going to get into a shootout with this person. And
which is post Columbine SOP.
Correct. Post Columbine. Okay.
Right. All right.
And so my team trained this, and all police departments train in active shooter. And actually, so my team used to instruct police departments in active shooter response.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is walking beyond the injured. Okay. Regardless of what condition they're in, they're screaming, they're crying, they're praying that you save them. You need to move on, because when you stop to save that one person,
right, you're going to lose 10 more.
You're going to lose 10. All right. So you got to take out the active shooter as quickly as possible. And so, I mean, you're a firearms guy. You know that. Would you rather have a handgun or a long arm if you're in a gunfight?
I would never take a pistol to a gunfight if I had the choice.
Here you go. So people don't realize that. A lot of people don't realize that, they just think a gun is a gun. All right.
They're all Glocks.
Yeah. That scary Glock that fires a bullet every time you pull the trigger.
They're all AK Glock something. Yeah.
So, all right. So we got the 3 scenarios now.
Right.
Those are the basics. Now, each scenario can transition to another. All right. So an active shooter situation can easily transition to a hostage situation. And so does the police response. All right. So let's just say, all right, I'm going to make up a scenario here. It's a school shooting situation. The first team, and when I say team, I mean just
whoever showed up. Yeah. Whoever was there. 2, 3, 4
cops.
Right.
Who get there first, and now they're on a mission, take out the shooter. So they chase him down a hallway. He runs into the room at the end of the hallway, slams the door, and starts firing rounds through the door. So that causes them to maybe take cover in some adjoining rooms, whatever, get out of the fatal funnel of the hallway.
Yeah.
Okay. And now they hear him screaming, "I've got kids in here. Anybody comes through that door, they're all dead." Okay. You follow me so far?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So
As a scenario.
what should the police response be in that situation?
Right. Well, convert to a hostage situation.
You got to convert to a hostage situation.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, if you go through that door and he kills even one kid, everyone's going to point the finger at you.
Yeah.
Why didn't you negotiate with him? Why didn't you communicate? Why didn't you follow your protocol and turn this into a hostage situation and react that way?
Well, I mean, I'll just say for sure. I just want to, of course, say that I wasn't there, and so
Neither was
so I just want to just no, you're scenarioing and just about. So I was not there. I want to make that clear for anybody listening. Of course, at least I think it's pretty good. But again, supposedly, this guy at that time is blasting away in that. I mean, he's fired more than 100 rounds, and he is blasting away in that classroom. Some through the door.
I find that hard to believe.
Yeah.
Okay, because I know cops. I've known thousands of cops. All right. I'm not a real special cop. I'm not some big time hero. I'm just like most of the guys that I hang around with. Most of my peers are like me. Okay. And if someone says that I'm going to stand by because I'm afraid to go in while this guy's shooting kids, we're going to have a real problem, me and this person that says that I'm standing by. So I guarantee there are plenty of cops like me that were on scene. And if they did not act, if they did not make entry, there was a reason for that. And it wasn't because they were afraid.
Right.
I
mean, I'm not okay. So I mean, that's a fair. Yeah. No, that's a fair thing to say. It's a fair assessment. Again, there was. I will get the details someday, but again, some of them again claim that they were told to stand down, and even though they're hearing shooting, they're hearing screaming. That seems to be something of a common theme. They did. Now, one thing we can say for sure, Jim, is that they were getting phone calls from these kids in the classroom saying, "I'm dying. I've been shot. Help us." And multiple phone calls came from the teacher who was still alive. These kids are dying, and they're saying, "We're still alive. Some of us are still alive." Now, that at least I think this is pretty well established. Now, right? What do you think of that?
If they have the time to be making these phone calls, he's letting them make these phone calls, right?
I guess. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
well, they sound like hostages. They sound like hostages to me.
Okay. Well, right. I mean, as a possibly something he put him up to, or possibly a trap. I don't know, a fatal funnel to get somebody to open the door. I don't know. That sounds.
Regardless of what was his intentions at that time.
Yeah.
We're talking about the response. We're talking about the police response.
Yeah.
And as far as like, there were, a bunch of cops outside and they wouldn't go in. Well, everyone doesn't go in. They probably knew that they had guys inside that were handling the immediate situation.
Right.
You don't just send 100 cops.
Yeah. No, I think supposedly I think there were 19 guys in the hallway proper, and the rest were obviously doing the perimeter thing and keeping people out and
and then then I got people saying, "Oh, they're handcuffing parents outside, won't let them go in." What I mean, so the next school shooting, we'll just say every parent.
As awful. Yeah, no, I get that.
Everybody,
I get that. As awful, as horrific and awful as that all sounds on video and the news, you cannot just say, okay, mom, run on it.
Yeah,
Now, one mom actually got through it, ran in, and happened to get her kid out, which is a
because
wonderful thing.
you can't stop everyone if
No, you
there's
can't. But I totally, I didn't have, that wasn't my issue per se, as far as it, obviously it looks bad on video.
yeah. I mean,
I, again,
it's like
uh-oh, we got another freeze up here. We'll see if Jim comes back, or we have to, here he
all
comes.
these assholes.
Hold on.
I can see you, man.
Okay. No, you were freezing up on my end. Okay.
All right,
Okay,
so
go ahead.
let me get back to this because it just pisses me off.
Yeah.
Um, you got people saying the cops are outside handcuffing parents while the children are getting shot in the school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That statement just aggravates the shit out of me because you got cops outside. They have a job. Containment is their job. No one goes in. Okay, and then you've got other cops inside.
Well, here we go. You can see me, but you're frozen on me again. We're getting your internet looks like it's slowing down. Hopefully you'll come back online in a half a second here.
Inside the school, they're doing their job.
Damn. Here it was just getting really good and getting into the meat. All right, now you're back. Anyway, you were getting to the meat and potatoes here, and the damn thing is freezing up on this side. So, all right, so you got cops that do have their specific job is obviously periphery stuff. You got cops inside that have their specific role, their job to do.
So,
and they were waiting. Well, apparently a particular team showed up who had been on station a little bit, and they were the ones. Federal team that finally were the ones that went and did what had to be done.
I don't know how it ended because I get all these. There's plenty of stories out there, and this is on purpose. This is to make the police look bad, and it's to make all of America like not believe anything they see. So you don't know what the truth is, and you don't trust the media at all. You don't trust any sources. So anyway. I read some story about some border patrol agent who was getting his hair cut, and he told a barber to give him his shotgun, and he ran in there and shot the hostage taker.
Yeah, no, that was we that part at least we know. Part was, as usual, there was part truth to that. Getting the haircut, getting the shotgun, going there, but he wasn't part of the shooter team that entered and anything like that. He was. I think he went and was able to get his wife out or some shit like that. But so there's always like a kernel of truth in there that they make a big deal out of and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, doing active shooter training myself as an instructor. All right. One of the things we teach all cops is only uniforms go into the situation. Detectives, the badge hanging around your neck or on your belt is not going to cut it. All right. It confuses the entire situation. What you get is when you're trying to find out where the active shooter is and what he looks like. Okay. People start describing all these detectives that are in the building. And, suddenly he's on the northwest side of the school. When really the real shooter is on the southeast corner of the school, but all the uniforms are running to the description of this detective that somebody saw. You know what I'm saying? It just adds to the confusion, and it's already
obviously it's already an utterly confusing, chaotic.
It's total
situation.
Chaos.
It's total chaos to begin with. So anything you can do to reduce that chaos down to something, obviously, is going to be.
So history tells us another story about parents all converging on the school. All right. What happens is you clog every route into the school. So now responding officers can't get there, and ambulances can't get in. And there's been situations where the ambulances did get in, but then the routes were so clogged they couldn't get out. They couldn't bring the injured people to the hospital because everybody converged on the school. And when they couldn't go any further, they just jumped out of their vehicles and ran to the school.
And leaving their vehicles, making it worse. And
Leaving the vehicles there.
yeah, now you've made
They've
it even
even
worse.
had situations where like fire trucks have had to push these civilian vehicles out of the way, or even if they're getting like heavy equipment like backhoes to just push these vehicles out of the way.
Right.
It's chaos, and you don't need to go to the scene. That's one of the worst things you can do is go to the scene, especially if you're going to bring a firearm with you. You know, so there's an active shooter in my kid's school, and as much as you want to go there, as much as like every fiber in your being is telling you to go there, especially if you have a firearm and you want to go and try and save your kid. I get it. I understand that, but it's one of the worst things you can do.
You know what? Actually, similar, a good story to actually bring that home. You know, I don't know if you saw what happened in Colorado. So there was an active shooter in a mall in Colorado not that long ago, who he killed a couple of people. A concealed carrier popped him.
Yeah.
All good. Well, what the guy did though is he then walks up to the guys, the active shooter, and picks up his AK, and a cop shows up and kills him, which is horrible. But you can't blame the cop. I mean, I wouldn't blame. I mean, if I'm coming around the corner, I hear active shooter, and I don't know anything about anybody. And I come around that corner, and there's a dude standing there with an AK. I'm going to pop him. I'm not going to. I mean, again, no television stuff, no freeze, no drop it, no nothing. I'm going to. So this poor guy obviously did a good thing. He did the right thing, but his response obviously should have been to put his gun away immediately, and pull back and just wait, or call in right away and identify himself, or whatever he should have done. So anyway, that's a true to life example of what you're talking about, how bad that can go.
Yeah. I mean, I know, I'm a concealed carry guy, and so are you, right?
Oh yeah. You're a mere, well, I was going to say you're almost a mere civilian now, but you've been sworn back in. So now you're no longer a mere civilian like the rest of us.
Regardless, if I ever get into a situation where I need to draw and fire my weapon at someone while I'm off duty. Yeah. Okay. And you, the same thing. As soon as you're safe, you better conceal it again.
Yeah. Put it away. Okay? Put it away. Right.
Be prepared for that police response.
Yeah. And
don't want to be standing there. Don't want to be standing there with your firearm out when they get you.
And it's an unfortunate reality that has happened more than a few times. I mean, that was a really blatant one example I just gave you, but there's been a number of really unfortunate events where, a concealed carrier, even off. I mean, it's even happened to off-duty cops, as you know, even off-duty cops
and on duty. Detectives have been killed by their own department.
Yeah, I mean, even off-duty cops. I mean, it's again, anybody thinks they would do better and all that should at least go through a police simulator, which is not even close to as stressful as reality. But I've done police simulators, and again, and as you know, the police simulators are all based on actual events. They're not made up to make your life hard. They're all identical to what happened. And I've done several police simulators, and again, man, that is some last minute go from 0 to 100 decision making. And I didn't always engage who I was supposed to engage, I guess is what I'm gonna say. All right. Well, so, I mean, you make some really good points there, Jim. I guess sort of what the take home of this is the usual, wait for all the facts to come in, right? Wait for the after action report. I mean, as you know,
they're never going to wait because, with the internet and 24-hour news services, they're going to tell you the second they hear anything, and they're going to, if they don't know the facts, they're just going to make them up anyway.
Well, now here's something again, and you may have a different take here, and which be interesting, but the department has already got a lawyer and legally wants to, but not ban. What's the word I'm looking for? Suppress the entire report because they claim that there are things that might be, and I quote might be embarrassing. That's from their own attorney, which to me reads very, very badly.
So one of the basic rules in a situation like this is that if you've got someone on scene should be calling the shots.
Right. And the one guy
No.
was supposed to be calling the shots, supposedly didn't. I mean, that's why they're giving him such a hard time.
Yeah, I had heard that the chief of the department said, "I'm on the way. Don't do anything until I get there," and that's ridiculous. All right,
Which would obviously be clearly contrary to active shooter SOP. Right?
Correct. Right. So you don't listen to an order like that. Okay, whoever is in charge of the scene calls the shots, regardless of what his superior is saying, who's not on scene.
On the scene. Okay.
So, okay. I mean, so bring up every criticism that you've heard about this situation. So there was, they didn't enter the classroom, and I contend that it transitioned to a hostage situation.
Or at least they thought it did.
Not knowing what actually happened, that is my opinion of what went down. It transitioned to a hostage situation, and they hopefully had an immediate action team ready to roll. And they were trying to at least communicate with this shooter. Which, you know, given the right scenario, that's the thing to do. That's the correct thing to do.
Right. All right. So yeah, these are good points. And fair point. I guess, yeah, you know, I mean, you knowing me for all this time, you know, I will always give the benefit of the doubt to law enforcement, and you know that I'll, you know, very rarely, again, I see all kinds of things, obviously online, where somebody says he should have done this, he should have done that. And my response is, you know, always, you know, A, you don't know what you're talking about. B, you weren't there. C, you know, oh, you know, the usual. He only had a knife. Why didn't they shoot him in the leg? Are you fucking kidding me? Holy crap. And so on and so forth. Anyway, you know that I will always give the benefit of the doubt to law enforcement, certainly before I would ever give it to any thug and so on and so forth. But the details and stuff, I have to admit, even when this all started, I was very much trying to kind of, again, like you're talking about, it's chaotic. We don't have details. Everything is very conflicting. I really was doing my best. And I have to admit that the more information I started to kind of come in, that I think was pretty valid information, I was really unable to, and I'm not blaming everybody there, but I really was unable to, that benefit of the doubt, honestly, kind of went out the window. You have brought it back a bit for me. I have to say, you have brought me back around a bit to, again, kind of sit back a little bit and let the details come out. I have a sense, again, of the details that I know, that certainly in some instances, in that a few people certainly really, really dropped the ball. And that might have a cascading effect that just kind of went through the whole thing and just made the whole thing a mess. I don't know. And that's,
you know, I will say that if there was shooting going on and they did not make entry, then they fucked up.
Okay. That's, you know, kind of all I wanted to hear. Yeah. See, that sums it up. I think you've made a lot of very important counterpoints, and I'm glad you did. And I haven't really heard anybody else, again, discuss this in the way that we are. But I also think that you've summarized a very, very important thing. So in case anybody's watching this and going, "Oh, he's making excuses. He's not holding them responsible, blah, blah, blah." But you have summed up at the very end of all this, everything, you know, if at the end of the day, that is what happened, i.e., they knowingly hear him blasting away, kids screaming, yada, 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 and they didn't make entry, they fucked up.
They fucked up.
Okay.
And you know, and again, we tell them this in active shooter training.
Yeah.
It might be your job to run into the gunfire.
Yeah.
It might be your last day on the planet.
Yeah.
But on that day, that's your job.
Right. And again, I am, again, always, regardless of what I see, always, I'm a diehard understander of, again, people say, why didn't the officer do this? And why, you know, that at the end of the day, you know, you're getting back in one piece to your family and all that is a priority. You do the best you can. You try to help people, all that stuff. But I have never had a problem with understanding at the end of the day why, like the latest thing where the criminal, the criminal jumps into the lake and he's drowning. And like they told him not to do it. They said, if you go in there, we're not coming for you. Yada, yada. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
And dude drowns. And now everybody's mad at the cops for not like immediately, you know, leaping in to save him. I'll be honest with you. I didn't have any issues with this.
You know, if anyone's had any water life-saving course,
Which I have. I actually was a lifeguard and had advanced life saving.
All right.
So I know what's going on in the water.
So the last thing you do is jump in after this person.
Yeah.
That's the last thing you do.
Yeah. And that's only if you have the training to do it. Again, water is not land. And if you don't have the training, all you're going to do is get dragged down. And again, now you got 2 dead people or 3 dead people or whatever.
Yeah.
So I guess my point being is that normally I would absolutely, but as you're saying, there is a time and a place where it is very clear that this is the day under those circumstances where it sucks to be you, but you know, you're going to do what you're either going to distract them while somebody else shoots them. You're either going to get shot. And they're very clear about this. This may be your day. Now, I don't want to sound melodramatic, but if you're ever going to go out a legit hero, that's it. I mean, that is like, that's not, I hate that. There's 2 terms. I think it's overused. The hero is way overused. Expert is way the hell overused. And victim, probably another one that's way overused, but that is honest to God hero stuff. And if you go down, if you go out that way, you are an honest to God hero. And that's an overused term in my view.
So there's been conflicting information about what type of firearm this shooter had.
Oh, he had an AR. He had a Daniel Defense AR. Again, the big mystery, another mystery, of course, where does this 18-year-old kid get something around $6,000? Now, a Daniel Defense AR is not just an AR. It's actually like a high-end expensive AR.
Oh, yeah?
It's a top tier, way up there AR. This is not your Bushmaster. This is not your $800 Bushmaster. This is like probably a $2,500 gun, $3,000 gun. He had multiples of them.
Let me make something clear here also. Okay. So that weapon fires a .223, okay, which is going to piss right through our body armor.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless it's the plate. I mean, other than your plate, well, even then, depending on the ammo you're using, I think depending on what you're using, it'll go through that too, I believe.
It's also going to go through a ballistic shield.
Right.
Okay. So chances are the ballistic shields they had on scene were not going to stop these rounds either. So they're no longer cover.
Right.
At best, they're concealment.
I think, and I don't know what they had originally on scene. When the team that showed up, the federal team that showed up that did the deed, their ballistic shield supposedly took a lot of rounds, something 14, 15 rounds. So they might have had obviously a bigger, better shield.
Yes, there are shields that will stop 223 rounds, but they're very heavy.
Yeah.
So they need to be smaller. We've had them. They're maybe like a foot wide.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe like a foot by 3 feet. And they're still pretty damn heavy.
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah, and again, it depends on the ammo. I mean, it tends but pretty much one of the biggest variables to that is obviously what you're using for ammo. So if you're using something that isn't, in which are not hard to get, M855, A1 or whatever, are designed specifically to go through body armor. And hard. So depending on what you're using, I mean, some stuff will sail right, might just go through it. And if you're using something more of the defense stuff, that mushrooms out, that would probably just have no effect on. So it can vary obviously quite a bit by the ammo, but basic solid core ammo and stuff is not particularly hard to find. Actually, it's pretty common. So, okay. Well, all right. I think we covered some good ground here today. I think this was, I'm glad that we talked about that event, because like I say, you did bring up some good points. It does kind of move me back into center of doing my best to, get the details and all that. And before I start, but like I say, I'm usually very, very resistant to jumping on the the anti law
Yeah.
enforcement bandwagon type thing. It takes a lot for me to get there, but I felt that it kind of got me there. But good
Well, I
point.
mean, this situation right from the beginning sounded unbelievable to me. It doesn't make sense, okay? And just like any other story that you hear, if it sounds unbelievable,
Yeah, too crazy to be true. Yeah,
it probably is unbelievable.
right. Right.
It's so it's not true. There's something wrong with the story.
Right.
The truth has not come out yet.
Right. Something missing. Yeah. No, it's definitely some missing blocks to this because the whole thing just is very bizarre. And the more information, like I say, that comes out, that's stranger it gets. And again, as always, I mean, again, my general sense is that I believe that, as you said, there were probably 100 cops there. I would easy to guess the vast majority of them there were there doing their job, doing the best they could, all that, and all that under those circumstances. And it may turn out that again, who knows? I mean, again, there might be just a couple of incidents, as you know, everything very chaotic. It only takes a couple of guys or a couple of people to really mess things up, to make a bad decision, to, not communicate, affect whatever it may be. And I'm my sense is that's what's going to turn out. But I don't, again, even the worst of it, I don't like to hear, people saying, every single cop. I mean, again, apparently there were police standing, or that were guys who were saying, why aren't we going in? I want to go in. What the hell is going on here? I mean, I have no doubt at all. There were lots of guys and girls, whatever, that absolutely were like chomping at the bit to go do what they had to do. I have no doubt about that at all. And so that's my sense. So, all right. So excellent. I think this is, I'm really happy about this because I wanted to talk to somebody like yourself who could maybe bring back some big picture discussion on this. And I agree 100% that the media will do everything in their power to make law enforcement look bad every chance they get. And that is a fact. And that I am completely on board with that. The only reason, again, I started to kind of move away from kind of benefit of the doubt towards not so much benefit of the doubt was I was able to, see some details that I felt were the sources were actually pretty reliable and all that. But it doesn't mean, obviously, I certainly don't have the whole picture. I don't, again. So, all right. So anything else in closing? Anything else you want to talk about? Thoughts? I will link I'll link your website underneath, of course, as people want to check out your stuff and your articles and your training and all that.
I mean, my website, I don't really pay much attention to my website. The only thing I'm on daily is Twitter. Right. And so my Twitter is just my name, Jim Vaglica, and at Jim Vaglica. That's my Twitter.
Okay. All right, man.
Well, so, I don't think I've ever done a podcast without speaking about the Boston bomber.
Oh, well, shit.
But,
man, you know what we got to do? Okay, you know what we will do? You know what? God, I can't believe we didn't talk about that. We have got to do an entire separate show on that because that's quite a story. And people, that is totally my fault. Jim was in the middle, like if you know the story and the guy is in the boat and the whole thing went from bad to worse, Jim was right there with his crew, saw the whole thing. So yeah, that's totally on me. And that would be we will follow up on a whole just Boston bomber thing. Cause God, I remember that very well, frankly. And I remember communicating you at the time. You guys were like, we are inbound. We don't know what is going on. I mean, the entire region, descended on that, in Boston, like the timer of Thor, not knowing what was going on. I mean, again, you didn't know if this was some kind of mass attack, were there more shooters? And then these guys are moving around. Then, they were in Watertown, and now they're like only a few towns from me. And I won't name a name because I don't know if I think he's still working, but I mean, I got a text saying, hey, Will, arm up, stay in your house. This is the car. If you see that car, light that fucking car up. But they are coming your way and we don't know where they're going. I said, thank you very much. And again, he said, stay in your house. Don't go do anything goofy, but this is the description of the car. And you see it's all hands on, man. So So I got a little warning, and I stayed in my house like a good civilian, and all that. So that shit was, that was real stuff. I mean, I was in it, feeling it. That was some crazy, crazy stuff. But yeah, let's do that as another show, and we will definitely do. I think that's a whole show unto itself. That I think people would be. That whole thing from start to finish was quite a thing, indeed. And too bad. Like I say, totally on me for not. That could have been a whole story unto itself. But this, of course, what we covered today was really current and really on people's minds. And I really wanted to get a take from somebody who was on SWAT, did lots of active training, did 30 plus years, so on and so forth, and wouldn't be too shy about his actual opinion, and wouldn't be all like talking out of two sides of his mouth and all that. So. But yeah, thanks for reminding me about that, man. Because I don't want to. If we do it now, we've been on a long time. You'd have to give it a short. You'd have to give it like this short thing, and I don't want. I think that is another show we definitely should do.
All right, sounds good, man.
All right, brother. All right, so thanks for the talk. I'll have this up soon enough, and we will talk again soon.
All right, bro.
All right. See y'all. Hope you enjoy. Oh, as usual, I gotta say, hit the likes, subscribe. I got to say all that cheesy stuff because I'm supposed to say at the end of my videos, and I always forget. And then people that know me, who work with me, give me shit about it. So.